Now, in keeping with the beat to review this newspapers, be reminded that you can also lend your thoughts to the dialogue by visiting either of our social media platforms across Facebook, Instagram, or on X at ADBN_TV. In the studio this morning is an ardent social commentator and public affairs analyst, Mr. Ben. Mr. Ben,
good morning
and welcome to the program.
It's my pleasure.
Now, Mr. Ben, starting with some of the controversies this morning, it's the debates on if we do not have sufficient laws to guard against premature elections as enshrined in the Electoral Act. Because we hear the INEC chairman, we also hear a respected figure in Professor Atahiru Jega, who also had a stint with the INEC, saying that there needs to be amendments in the electoral laws to enforce the sanctioning of political players who proceed on premature elections. For you, is this a concern, or what do you make of this developing story?
Well, it's a huge distraction. People have been in government for just about 2 years, and then you're hitting up the system with the campaign of succession or continuity.
When you say people, who are you referring to in particular?
Well, the president, the governors, all of them have not been there for 2 years when the first and the rush to commence campaign by different interest groups under whatever guise had commenced. So I think that there should be a law that actually ban the political parties if proven that those who are involved with the campaign are members of the party. We should have a window for campaign. When the elections are over, we should move into governance.
But there's a window for that already as enshrined in the Electoral Act.
Yeah, but there should be sanction for going or against doing things outside the windows, and people should be taken to jail. Like some of us would always say, we need a constitutional court that can deal with matters of politics all the year round. Let that be there. I keep telling people, in some countries their issues were land. In a place like Ghana, you have the civil court, you have the commercial court, you have the land court. I think that in Nigeria we need an anti-corruption court. We need a constitutional court to deal with the matters of politics, so that you don't use it to disturb other matters. Civil and criminal can continue the way they are presently, but for corruption, you need a court, in my opinion. For election matters and constitutional issues that relate to politics, we should have a separate court at the level of the High Court, so that you can effectively focus on these things and do them without necessarily belaboring the court system. And then there can be speedy adjudication, not that you start the matter and it drags forever. No, you know that this is the only thing that happens in this court, and then people go to jail for political reasons, for violating campaign rules, for violating principles and processes that guides how people emerge into office. When you have that in place, I'm sure that more people will become careful.
Now, Mr. Ben, one thing to note is that a couple of institutions have come under scrutiny following how the laws are interpreted and how judgments are delivered in Nigeria. The first ball rests with the National Assembly, who will be required to come up with those laws and how they will look at the technicalities of what we now see as endorsements vis-a-vis the erection of billboards and campaign posters. Now, whilst that is one of the debates on the one hand, on the other hand, you'd have the judiciary, the courts you're calling for, in terms of how they look at these laws and how they give judgments and interpret them. When you look at these two debates, are you certain that institutionalizing courts that would look into issues as this would help dispel any fears of Nigerians who would also look at the National Assembly and the judiciary and say, as much as these laws are present, they are not effective?
That's what we are saying. Give a bite to the law. Right now, you are going to have judges in the High Court cumbered with so many matters. So you bring the case, and then there is continual postponement. You keep adjourning and adjourning because there are not sufficient spaces or sufficient opportunity to hold the matter. So basically, if you come up with the court and the National Assembly come up with the law, the difference in gap, the current gap will then be that there is the law and you have opportunity to test it. So if you say don't erect big board and then somebody erect the billboard, both the person who did the erection and the person who paid for it, if they are held accountable and you put them in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months jail term, I'm sure when they come back, they are not ready to repeat the process. Or while they are in court trying to clear the matter, they will not continue with the grandstanding of doing with impunity.
Do you think the law should also go after regulatory bodies? Because we know we have the advertisers regulatory bodies that regulate the placement of advertisement materials on billboards.
No, that's what I'm saying. You own the advertising agent. You own the billboard. You are licensed for whatever it's on it. So it's your business. So if a wrong item, if a wrong advert, in my opinion, comes up in the newspaper, both the newspaper that published that false report and the originator should be sanctioned, because there is the clearing house. There is somebody who is an editor. There is somebody who is the content manager who is supposed to ensure that what you are putting out there does not contradict the law of the land in any way. So if you put it out, yes, somebody paid for it. So both the owner, when proven, and the advertiser, that's the owner of the media, they both should be sanctioned for it.
Now, I've heard you speak about jail terms in terms of making recommendations as to what stiffer punishments would be. Do you think the jail term is a stiffer punishment, and if so, how many years behind bars?
No,
if convicted,
even if it's 1 month, let it go with a jail term and a fine, so you become an ex-convict for getting involved. And then we hope that over time we can enforce our law on who is an ex-convict. And
do you think this will serve as a deterrent?
It will be a deterrent, because if you now come to the National Assembly, because some of those doing these things are doing it because they want political appointments. And eventually, if you get the toga of an ex-convict on your head, I am sure that in the eventual election cycle, you become ineligible to contest, and that could also affect you even getting appointments, because it will be in the public domain that you actually are an ex-convict.
Now let's look at the comments of the former INEC chairman, Professor Atahiru Jega, who says that these early campaigns constitute to heating up the polity. In your opinion, 2 years into an administration, whether it be endorsement, whether it be campaign posters, how much of heating up the polity is this? And what are some of the adverse effects of this?
Oh, it's a major distraction as far as I'm concerned. Because when you say endorsement, you are actually distracting the man who is like somebody is running a race and you are calling him on the sideline. You are not spurring him to act, you are distracting him. Because eventually your watch comes to his head, the concentration on the race is reduced, and in the end, he will, even if he's still going to win the race, he would have lost some pace because of what has happened on the sideline. So whether it's a boo or a jeer, for that man on the race, it's a distraction. So when you come also to politics, there are 4 years for a tenure. And I think that the first 3 years, in my opinion, should have been concentrating on governance. If you think you want to help the man in office, look at what to do to help alleviate the problem of the people. The monies they are wasting on the billboard and the rest, repair primary health care, repair the roads in your neighborhood, and make life better for everybody. Invest that money possibly in buying tricycles and look for areas where there are unemployed people and where the transport system is not efficient, and shore it up. Overall, the nation gets better and people get more dividend, and that will help your candidate better than the billboard that many people will not even read. Some just know that, okay, something new has appeared there, but they really don't even bother about the content. So a number of time, it's waste of money. So put that money where it can add value to the people and to the system.
Now, the other tricky angle to this is, as much as we need laws, reforms to criminalize this, it is for the nation, or should I say society, to see that there is some sort of enforcement. The IG has vowed to enforce such laws if they come up, amid accusations from the PDP and ADC that the current leading party, the APC, is technically in violation of this provisions against the electoral elections. Do you think that in terms of enforcement, there would be that will to carry out the statements of the law?
There should be a way to carry out the statement of the law. And as against the issue of who is violating, any politician, any active political class today who says my party is not violating is being silly. The truth is that they are all involved. People say, I'm leaving party A for party B, and you are making so much noise and gathering the press. You are already, in a way, campaigning. As far as I'm concerned, I want to hear and see governance. I want to see alternatives. To say that, oh, we are 2 years down the line, you promise CNG, we can't see the CNG buses. Then take a practical action possibly to do it. Now, I remember in 1999 to 2003, there was a governor that eventually emerged in 2003. He was in the opposition, 1999 to 2003. But he spent his time at the time, there was water problem in the state. And some said, oh, he hired tankers and was giving people water from community to community. And he did that for over a period of 2 years. He was not even doing any campaign at the time. At that time, he wasn't even sure of the ticket of his party. But as an individual, he was meeting the water problem and was meeting some people. Eventually, when he emerged against the run of play as the candidate of the party, he went ahead to win the election.
You feel it's also boosted by the singular act of...
It was boosted by the singular action of meeting the need of the people at the basic level where he could. He didn't have the power to run pipe-borne water across the state, but he could acquire tankers and then make sure that some people have access to the water. For me, he wasn't campaigning for any party at the time. He was doing things, philanthropy, at his own level. And so he engaged people. There are those others who say, oh, scholarship they are giving or this or that. But they are not branding it on the toga of the party. And the recipient know who is giving what. And when the time comes, they can take a better decision. So as against rallying and meeting in Nikon and meeting in this and meeting in that, what basic problem are the politicians solving at their locality? And again, that will give credence to some of us who believe that, look, we are a parliamentary people. One of our biggest challenge is this presidential rubbish that we run. If we don't get in this presidential contraption, it will be less for people who want appointment to start doing so much noise. You will if you need to get into the parliament, you need your people. And so you have to first of all go back to your grassroots and connect with your people. And then hope that the person representing them does not deliver sufficiently. And then you become an acceptable alternative. But in the present practice, we know clearly that people don't really need that connection. If the governor sanctions you, you will be local government chairman. If the president sanctions you, whether the people want it or not, if you can't make the Senate, you will become a minister. And so you can afford to make your noise where the noise will be heard by those who should sanction, who should give you position. But if you need the grassroots to become anything in the system, I'm sure that again there would also be a change of focus. Because your support for the president may no longer be effective enough until you made it to the parliament. But right now, if the president can win, whether you win your election or not, whether you even deliver your local government or not, whether you deliver your polling unit or not, as long as you have been recognized as somebody who made noise or who was with them, you can get
an appointment. Now, you made mention of a catchphrase, acceptable alternative? This would bring us to our second point of conversation this morning on INEC's recognition of the ADC-led leadership by former Senate President David Mark and Aregbesola and other national executives of the party. The ADC has been dubbing itself as an alternative. The presidency have called them a coalition of nomadic politicians. A lot of nomenclatures have been banded around as to what the ADC is and is not. But what's the significance of this recognition by the INEC?
Well, it shows that as far as the government is concerned, those who think that it is the government that is preventing INEC from recognizing ADC or any new political parties can now see that if they do what is right.
So you feel the government has been vindicated by
yes,
this?
the government has been vindicated as not stifling the opposition.
As against the one-party state drama that we had seen.
That we had seen. So it's not a one-party state. It will never be a one-party state. If the opposition meets the simple procedures as laid down by INEC, INEC would register them.
Talking about these procedures, I heard some side talk about how stringent these procedures are. Right now, there are over 171 applications on INEC's table. But talking about the parameters to be met to qualify to be recognized by the INEC, have you taken a look at it? Are they so stringent?
When you run by the presidential system, right, we say they need to have office in the FCT and 2/3 of the state. That's 24 states. I don't see that as stringent. If you're going to be a national political party, which is the only thing that the presidential system permits, if you cannot get members in 24 states of the federation, if you cannot establish a presence or an office, I really do not think you qualify to call yourself a national party. And since we don't yet have independent candidacy, then I don't think that the conditions are stringent. It is just that people don't want to take responsibility. They just want privileges without responsibility. I think that's the bane of our problem. Establishing the offices and doing your due diligence and having genuine members. They didn't say you must have 1 million members in every state. No. Just have a physical office. They didn't say you must own the office. It could be rented. And then, of course, you need to have staffs or members or escorts in those places. Because if you don't have members in the 24 states, at least 24 states of the federation, how then
are you a national
campaign across the nation? How then do you prove to us that on the election day you can provide agents? If you cannot have an office, where do you gather the list of the agents? Is it on the internet? And so eventually you come back complaining about the result of the election that you almost did not participate in. Because if you have 186,000 polling, over 186,000 polling units, and a party couldn't raise 90,000 polling representatives, and then they come back to tell you that the election was rigged or was unfair or was this or was that. But in the first place, they have not even done their own diligence. Because I always tell people, if we have 186,000 polling units and we have parties that did not get 50,000 votes, it tells, because the polling agent will vote for the party, it tells you that they have less than 50,000 polling agents. So how do you hope to manage that election if you cannot even have representative in 2/3?
Now, using the ADC as a case study, let's come to the subject of membership. Now, for a few of the national executives, they had jettisoned their former parties and picked up the ADC card. A few figures in terms of who their presidential candidate might be. I know we're not yet at the conventions, neither are we at the primaries. But for certain names in the party, they still carry their former cards close to heart. A lot of them have been asked why they are yet to resign their party memberships and fully adopt the ADC. And no tentative answer has been given.
Well, I think those who have described some of them going to ADC as internally displaced politicians will be right. They have not been expelled from the party. They have not denounced the party, but within the party, they felt displaced. And so they are looking for a new habitation. Now, until you get a new house and you are sure that you will stay there, you can't pack out of where you used to live because you won't be carrying your load all over the street. Is it not? So it's a simple thing. They have issues with where they are. They are not comfortable. So they are looking for the new place. When they find a new place and it's okay for them, then they can perish. Now, take note that between these figures we're banding and talking about, some of them are not used to competing primaries. They get the ticket. Some are used to competing primaries. The party is not decided yet whether there will be a competition for the ticket or the ticket will be given. So for the person who is used to getting ticket without competing, if you tell him there will be competition in the end, he won't stay because he does not have what it takes to contest
for the ticket of the
for
party.
the ticket of any party, because whether as governor or as presidential candidate or as he had never stood up to challenge anybody or to be challenged for ticket. He is just used to, you come, they do waiver and the ticket is handed, or the contest has even been done by some other people, and then for whatever reason you're taking the ticket away from the person who competed and earned it, and you are giving it to him. So for that kind of person, you don't expect him to abandon where he is sure he will likely get the ticket without competing to an environment where he knows that it's actually a red ocean when it comes to getting the ticket, and there are masters of the red ocean on the table.
One of such persons who seems to have it easy when it comes to clinching a party's ticket is the former VP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who has fully now adopted the membership of the ADC with a party card to show for it. Do you think with the comments around the need to zone it to the south in terms of the presidency, he would have a say in that regard?
Well, ADC had not concluded on zoning. And there are figures in ADC who have told you that the only way you can beat the current president is most likely to have a candidate from the north. So as a party, ADC has not jumped on the bandwagon of the APC and the PDP to say we are fielding a southern
presidential candidate.
That statement has not been made official.
But in your permutation, where do you see them leaning in that regard?
Well, like I said, nothing is certain now. If it's going to be an open competition, we know that it will be difficult for any candidate in that party
to go against him.
An article. If, however, they will be handing it over to someone, then the scenario will change, because it then becomes more of a contest of, perhaps I would say, the South-South and the Southeast.
Interesting. Let's talk about zoning. You brought it up. And now let's look at the PDP next, because it seems as though, according to news reports, this issue of micro-zoning has stirred up tension in the PDP.
Well, some would want micro-zoning, but I knew that popularly even those who across the north think it should go to the south are not at the moment interested in micro-zoning. And that's why you will hear them touting a Jonathan somewhere for the south-south, and Obi coming back from the southeast, and of course a Makinde running from the southwest. So basically, as it stands today, there are at least 3 options on the table. So micro-zoning, I don't think is yet happening in the PDP, and may not happen, particularly for the seat of the president.
Now, you've mentioned one of the common, or would I say open secrets, the clamor to have former President Goodluck Jonathan as a potential part of the PDP that would challenge APC in 2027. There have been different opinions about it. The FCT minister has been quite vocal. He has kicked against bringing back Mr. Peter Obi back into the PDP. And on the choice of Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, he's advising that Dr. Goodluck Jonathan stays away from the race. Why do you think that this is much of a concern to him?
Well, he is from the South, and I think that to an extent, he would have his preferences as to what should run. Now, Jonathan himself believed, most people think 2015 election was rigged. Jonathan himself has declared, I lost because I was betrayed. So if the same people are now calling him back, those who could betray him when he was president, will they be benevolent enough to now give him an open support, sufficient support, when he's not in power? Now, I don't see Jonathan putting down the kind of money that is required to fund the election campaign in the current system. Now, if he is not willing to spend the money, and the PDP governors have made it clear they will not sponsor the election. That's what the PDP governors have said at some point back, which was part of some of the reasons why some of those who left the party left. So if the governors will not sponsor, Jonathan doesn't seem to have personal financial muscle, as far as we can see in the public space, to run the campaign. Then it means you will now have to rely on some institution and individuals within the party to fund. Now, Wike has been one of the great financiers of the party in the last 10 years. And so he would also want to look at the spending space. How do we raise the money to do this thing? If you have a candidate that won't come with his money, and who is presently not a sitting governor or sitting somewhere to be able to influence things, it might be a big challenge for the party. So that, for me, might be part of the reason why he would want Jonathan to stay away. Of course, why he would also not want an Obi to come back, because he does not want, just like the governors, to go raise the money to spend for a candidate who will not be ready to put his money where his interest lies. And then, of course, I think on Jonathan, there is also that concept of the legal framework. He's been sworn in twice. The constitution is 1999 constitution as amended. It's not 2019 constitution or 2021 constitution. So which means whatever has happened from 1999 till date is covered. So those who think that the law cannot be made retroactive, calling it 1999 constitution as amended, in my opinion, already makes it retroactive. It covers whatever happens from the spade of 1999 till date. So maybe those who have their term before 1999 can claim that they are excluded. But for people who have been in office from 1999 till date, the issue of double swearing in may affect Jonathan until the Supreme Court or the court decide otherwise. Now, I'm also not sure that any party wants to go the risk of put up a candidate that you still need the court to verify. What if the court decides that the candidate is not qualified and you do not have sufficient time to provide a replacement?
Now, that's quite a technicality. But in terms of his person, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, many say he left with a lot of respect from the Nigerian electorate, saying that the blood of no Nigerian is what he's what I call it, strive to remain in power as of 2015, despite the lies and betrayals he suffered. Do you think that for credibility's sake, he should not even consider it?
Well, I think that he shouldn't consider coming back. The truth is this. Up until now, because one, you bring him back and you decide to have a primary, does he have what it takes to challenge the governors? except they decide voluntarily.
When you say governors,
to
I
step
have a hint you're referring to Governor Seyi Makinde.
Seyi Makinde
A lot of
there.
people have said that
Bauchi governor is there.
He holds
Yes.
the highest ambition.
So when you look at within the two, Bauchi governor may support Jonathan, agreed, but Seyi Makinde and his gang may likely not support, especially if he chose to be interested, and which I know that there are a lot of prayers for him to be interested. So when you come to that concept, I think that except you assure Jonathan, okay, we are giving you the ticket without, that's where the issue of whether it's Jonathan or Obi, they are not used to competing for ticket. No, they are not used to. Even when he became governor in Bayelsa, it was negotiation. If Etimi Alaibe had not stepped down at the time, the chances were that Jonathan wouldn't have emerged in Bayelsa when he emerged as the governor. So you are looking at people who are not used to competing primaries as against some who were traditionalists in doing it. So you want them to weigh their option. So if you say come in, what are the assurances you are giving? What are the caveats? Where will the campaign fund come from? And if those are not guaranteed and well defined, then there will be issues.
Now, certain Senator Abba Moro has been very vocal about what the PDP's position is in that regard. And for him, he thinks it's a three-horse race internally. Although Mr. Peter Obi is not a party member, he says it rests between either Mr. Peter Obi, Seyi Makinde, Governor His Excellency Sir, and former President Dr. Goodluck Jonathan. Do you think that he speaks for a sizable number of the PDP, or it's just a personal opinion?
Well, I don't think he's speaking for a sizable number of the party, because the practical reality is I don't think that a lot of stakeholders in the party possibly want an Obi back, for instance. Some of them still believe he was responsible for their loss in 2023, because he was with them up until the dying minute, only to suddenly move away and, of course, go in on a new platform and then, of course, win election in some of their traditional ground. He got 1.8 million in the Southeast. If PDP had gotten that, perhaps the election result would have been different. Although I think that beyond the individuals, it's also that when we go back to 2023 election, compared to 2011, it shows clearly that perhaps there has been some improvement in the results we bring out. Because in 2011, Jonathan had 7 million in the Southeast, 7 million votes. The total votes garnered by Obi in 2023 was less than 7 million. So if we take it at that point, it tells you that, and in 2023, you cannot say that the election was boycotted in the Southeast. People voted into the night and voted massively, and the total figure came to 1.8 million.
Now, the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Abba Moro, in his closing on his position of who the three possible candidates are, has also talked about the ADC. He says, particularly those of PDP extract that are now joining the ADC, he can trace it back to 2022, where he feels a lot of them feel shortchanged about the party's position in throwing open the race in some instance. Do you think that that 2022 upheaval can be corrected going forward? Because it seems as though that's the beginning of when the PDP began to suffer its current crisis.
They can correct it, but even their attempt to correct it, now you need to know, I would always say this without any reservation. The PDP, as originally constituted, was made up of establishment people. Establishment people have the party work for them. They don't work for the party. And so if they have that feeling that the party did not work for them and they chose to move away, and the party is presently not in government, the assurance that the party can actually work for them in the next election is very low. And so they would rather stay wherever they think that they can have their voices heard and then some things done for them. Because that's the practical reality. It's not about them doing things for the party. It is about being able to come up into an association where they can benefit more than they are giving. That's establishment people for you. And that's what dominates every facet of the PDP as a party. And that's why 10 years out of government, you can see them having a lot of issues. And a number of them will find their way to APC if they had the opportunity in their respective states. Because APC is in government and they are used to using the government to satisfy their personal interest and needs.
Well, it's quite interesting that we've talked about political parties and all the permutations ahead of 2027. Let's leave that conversation for now. I'm very quite interested in your views on how this would shape up the race in 2027 as the parties align to find which candidates would best wrestle power from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But let's come to some issues as it affects the Nigerian masses. Now, the Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security did tell pressmen that at the recent FEC meeting, the president has given a new mandate to a committee to crash food prices nationwide. For me, I don't know if it's indeed the best solution to affect something that has been economically influenced in terms of inflation and what the factors driving the inflation are, particularly with the cost of transportation. How much can this committee do to crash food prices nationwide?
Well, I think crashing food prices is not about the rhetorics and it's not about the committees. It should be telling us what practical steps are they taking. As far as I'm concerned, what are the things responsible for the food insecurity in the land? Number one, the food insecurity. Number one is that the forest is not safe. Number two is that the cost of transportation is high. Number three, it's that the infrastructural facilities have broken down. And then number four, you are actually talking about the inputs for the farmers. Now, in Buhari regime, we have issue talking about rice, and some big men took up the issue of providing the seedlings. And then the price of seedlings went so high. So if you are buying the inputs at so high a price, definitely for you to arrive at any meaningful profit, the final price has to be high. So when you say the inputs, how are you going to provide the seedlings? Now you still can grow cowpea. Now you still can do some maize, right, before the end of the year. Now there are still crops that can be planted. Some environment can still make do with potato. So the minister, rather than say, oh, we have an order to bring it down. No. How are you bringing down the order in the forest? We've spoken about forest guard. The president spoke about it 3 months ago. As of today, where are we in each of the states of the federation? Until this forest is saved, the farm cannot be saved. If the farm is not saved, the output will be low. And if we need importation, the prices cannot come down.
Now let's talk about the farm and the forest as it involves the autonomy of local councils, because that's their forte, that's their playing field.
Yeah.
Norgay issued a statement and said it's almost impossible to achieve this without granting the full autonomy of the third tier of government. They're also calling on the president to enforce that the Supreme Court judgment be followed. Oshun comes to mind when we talk about this. It's almost glaring knowledge to all that despite our judgments, some people seem to be above the law.
No, basically, have we granted the local government autonomy? Not yet. Then when you come to forest, the forest does not belong to the local government. The forest belongs to the state. And some are even federal reserve forest.
That's right.
So if we're talking about security at the forest level, I think we should leave local government out of it. If you are going to arm people, you even need to define it before you give it to the state, before you now talk about local government. Because anybody you have trained and armed, you cannot owe them salary. You cannot owe them welfare. You need to arrange their logistics. Otherwise, there will be mass failure. And when you fail at that level, it will affect every other thing. So I think that the minister should be telling us what are they doing at the level of securing the forest. If the forests are secured, the farm will be secured, and in fact the street will become more secured because there will be no hiding place for criminals. Number two will be, what are the transportation adjustments that we are doing in the farm still? At some point, Bronu was looking at CNG and electric vehicles. Why don't we have on the farm still electric tricycles, for instance, and build solar farm where they can charge them? So if they have ship transportation towed within the farm and that runs within their environment, you are going to have less cost in this area. Then when it comes to farm inputs, where are they produced? How are they distributed? What is the control mechanism between where they are produced and how they get to the farmers? Because if you buy a seedling for 10,000 or 5,000 or thereabout, when the crop on it come and it's only 5 or 6, each one has come at a cost of more than 2,000 naira. Because cost of seed alone will be 2,000.
2,000.
Cost of other input, cost of labor, before you now look at profit margin.
All this drive and...
So all those will be in. So we need the minister to tell us what are they doing differently to prevent post-harvest decomposition. Are we going to begin to have trucks that possibly have solar panels on their head and have DC compressors, such that when you pack in the tomatoes in Boko or in Kano, it gets to Lagos fresh? Right now, when you take it out of Kano or Boko and you spend a whole day on the road, if the vehicle does not break down, you lose like 30% of the tomatoes.
Harvest. That's right.
But when you now have a situation where the truck broke down, you can even lose as much as 80 or 100%. So you should be telling us, post-harvest decomposition, what is the immediate plan? Such that from wherever you produce until it gets to the final consumer or the final market, these things are preserved. What do you do to address the transport in the locality? What do you do to the infrastructure? Some people have farms that they cannot go now because the planks they have put on the river to cross,
the floods have
been
washed
taken
them
away by the flood, and so they cannot access the other side of the farm maybe until somewhere in October, by which time the pepper, the tomatoes, and the perishable items
out of season,
the okra have grown out of season and they cannot be harvested. So we have people who are working. There is the challenge of those basic infrastructure. Some states, some local gov areas today, they are still using the 3.5 or 7 kilometers road did by the Captain Larry Koyan left D3 in the mid to the late 80s. But here we are already several years into the new millennium and nothing new
has been done.
Interesting
positions from Mr. Ben Agunloye on practical solutions in addressing Nigeria's food security. We need to take a quick commercial break now, and when we come back, we'll touch on the third national grid collapse in the year 2025 and the amount of losses accruing to Gencos in terms of load rejection and how this would continue to affect conversations against power stability in the country. Stay with us.